Hello, welcome to the first episode of the Tiny Bottles Project, where I'm going to explore my inheritance of a few hundred vintage miniature liquor bottles, one bottle at a time. I'm Tammy Coxon, and through my business, Tammy's Tastings, I've been teaching cocktail classes for 11 years. One of my favorite things about my job is that I always get to learn new things, and learning about the history and the stories behind spirits, liqueurs, and cocktails is one of my favorite things. About a year ago, my father brought me a treasure trove. When my grandmother died in 2019, she left behind her collection of miniature liquor bottles. She'd been collecting them since the 1970s, and I remember scouring the duty-free shop with my parents on all of our family trips, looking for a bottle to bring home that she didn't have yet. After my grandma died, I asked my dad what happened to all the little bottles, and a few months later, he showed up on my porch with 2 giant tubs and a box. I took a look at a few of the bottles in the box, and to me, each one is a tiny time capsule with a lot to say about drinking culture and history of its time. For example, there's this one, Black Bottle Scotch Whiskey. So this is probably from the 1970s or maybe the early 1980s, because after that, Scotch whiskey kind of goes out of fashion in the United States. But in the post-war period, Scotch whiskey was kind of a big deal. This is a 100% finest Scotch whiskey, so just a blend, not a single malt like we're used to today. I don't know anything about the company, but I'm interested in finding out more. This one looks like a bottle of Chianti. And that's what I thought it was at first glance. It actually even says Italian, but then when you read closer, it's Italian Swiss Colony. And I researched this one, and it turns out it's a California company. And not just any California company, but the company that made the most wine in California in the 1970s. Clearly, they were trying to up their game, make themselves look a little more exotic by packaging it like an imported product. It's actually Californian. And it honestly does not look so good. Has not aged well in its tiny bottle. This one was a real treasure. This is Wild Turkey Liqueur. Wild Turkey comes out with this product in the 1970s as a way to appeal to women. They didn't think that women would drink bourbon at the time, but if they sweetened it, then maybe that would tap into a new market for them. And so this is it. It's just a beautiful bottle. I love that it's still in the box. Cost $1.75 in whatever year this one came from. It's got a little tax label on top, and that actually is something that I could hopefully use to try to figure out what year it's from and dig into its history a little bit more. This is a precursor to American honey. They brought this idea back in the modern era, but this time they realized men like sweet drinks too. It was so fun for me to dig into even just a few of the bottles that I decided that I should share that fun with the world. And that's what I hope I'll actually spend the next few years doing. Except for those few bottles that I looked at on the first day, I have no idea what's in the boxes. I don't even know how many bottles there are. So let's find out together. About every month or so, I'll do a reveal video where I'll grab a few bottles at random and tell you what I can tell about them just by a quick look at the label. Then I'll spend some time diving in and doing the research so that I can share their stories through a blog, podcast episodes, and YouTube videos. Wherever you like to get your content, these bottles will be waiting for you. So let's get started. I went down to the basement and I picked out some bottles. This is what they look like in one of the bins. Total mysteries, wrapped in paper, sometimes vaguely damp. Oh look, this one's moldy. Excellent. This is where the fun starts, everybody. All right, this one actually has 2 bonus bottles. All right, this is Le Grand Amour, a liqueur of cognac. So going to be a sweet cognac liqueur of some sort. Cognac is a brandy made from grapes. I'm going to guess this is French. And along with it, oh, this is fun. This is a very, very dusty bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey. I think that is actually mold and not dust on the bottle. I think I'll clean this one off before I touch it very much. Next up, oh, this is great to have right next to the Jack Daniel's. It's a little bottle of Maker's Mark. Oh, wow, that's really cool. This, of course, iconic red label. This probably comes from the 80s because that's when this Maker's Mark came on the market and marketed themselves with this red dipped top, the red wax that's their signature. Super cool. It's also got a price tag on top, $1.66. This one was just floating around, and it shows you one of the challenges of these bottles. This one's plastic. And so I don't know that it's leaked from the top. I don't know that maybe someone drank this one. I don't think so. I think it's just that it's plastic and plastic evaporates, and there you go. This is Hot Shot Tropical Fruit Liqueur, 42 proof. All right, so a couple more. Oh, here we have actual cognac, Martell, still a company that's around today, bottled at 70 proof, so a little bit lower than we usually see cognac bottled at today. That's really interesting. That's the random bottle pick for today, but I do actually have one more that I know a little bit about. So here's the last one. You'll notice it's wrapped in plastic and almost empty, and I did that. These bottles were not well stored. They hung out in spice racks all over the walls of my grandmother's house for decades. When she moved out of that house in 2016, they just got put in the boxes and stored for a while on an unheated porch in Canada. A few days after I got them, I opened up a tub to take a peek, and I noticed that a formerly pristine white box now had a big brown stain. And what I had lost was something I was really sad to lose, because this is Old Jamaica Liqueurs Pimento Dram, which is an allspice liqueur. And if you're looking closely at the bottles behind me, I have a lot of rum, and that's because I really like tiki drinks. And pimento dram or allspice dram is an important ingredient in tiki drinks, and it was an ingredient that was produced in Jamaica up until the 1980s, maybe still produced there, but only imported into the United States until the 1980s, because then tiki fell out of favor. Until the 1990s and 2000s when it came roaring back, and I actually had to make my own pimento dram because I couldn't buy any. And so here is a vintage bottle of pimento dram that is now mostly empty. So, bottoms up. It's definitely pimento dram. Ooh, pimento is allspice. It's really allspice forward. A little bit thick because I think it's evaporated a little, as we would guess. My grandma never drank these bottles, although my grandfather might have snuck one or two. She was a collector, but I spent my time teaching people how to drink better. I think that a bottle's destiny is to be tasted, so that's what I'm going to do. But that will hopefully be the only bottle you'll see me taste by myself, because in my world, a bottle's destiny is also to be shared. As I discover what I've got, I'm hoping to find some people who know even more than I do about what's in them, and then sit down for a conversation and taste. So now it's time for me to start researching. So subscribe to my channel and find out what happens next, or visit mytinybottles.com for photos, blog posts, podcast links, and more. Cheers!